rivers traditionally, particularly in communities like ours, were they were utilitarian, right? You floated logs on them, or you threw stuff out your back window into them, and you turned your back on rivers. When I was a kid, if somebody was fishing in the Clark Fork, you knew there was something wrong with them and that they didn't know anything about fishing. And all that's different today. If you look at uses along the Clark Fork today, some of my staff who are involved in conservation lands management will tell you that we're loving it to death. People use it all day long for all sorts of things. And so one of the things we're working on collectively as a community is making sure that all stakeholders are at the table and we have a conversation about what the Clark Fork's future is as development continues, as people continue to recognize it as not only a natural resource but a recreational facility. The Clark Fork is a big deal.
You know, first of all, I want to say I love Missoula. I mean, Missoula is one of the best places on the planet, hands down. It's a special place, it's beautiful here. There's a lot of opportunity here.
It's a small Montana town with kind of all of those cultural aspects that are exciting to be around, the music, the art, the university, and all of that is set in, you know, our beautiful mountains and our rivers that we have here.
You can't imagine Missoula without its rivers. It's not just the Clark Fork, you know, it's the Blackfoot, it's the Bitterroot, it's the tributaries, it's Rattlesnake Creek. We have threatened species that go right through town, large bull trout that are on the federal endangered species list that are staging to spawn up Rattlesnake Creek, and that's where we work and play. I mean, that wildness is, and recreation fun is all part of who Missoula is. It's part of who we are. It absolutely is. That's not hyperbole. It's not cliche. It really is part of who we are in Missoula, I think.
The story of Montana, Western Montana in particular, is one of resource extraction, and so much of the story centers around butte and mining and the remarkable long-term environmental effects of that activity on that big hill upstream from Missoula. As mining operations change, as technology changes, as our understanding of environmental impacts of human activity change and evolve, advocates begin to recognize that a lot of what we've done in the name of industry has had significant environmental impacts. Among those, we years ago put a dam in the middle of the Clark Fork to generate hydroelectric power. Dam decommissioned a long time ago, so it wasn't serving the purpose of generating power anymore. And I think the unintended consequences of damming the river there is that sediments from all that mining activity piled up decade after decade after decade behind the Milltown Dam. So the question then becomes, what's the future?
The future is building waves in rivers specifically for riding surfboards on. We call them river enhancement projects. A lot of times with that is you can build waves that you can surf and kayak on. And not only are these features improving the actual environment and replacing a broken irrigation structure for say with something that is a usable recreational feature that you can have events and stimulate the local economy and at the same time improves the aquatic life for the fish. And you've seen with like Brennan's Wave, a man-made wave, and you've got ducks laying eggs on the island, geese laying eggs every year right down by the wave. One of the best fishing holes in town right at the wave. So what you see is basically changing the, that river environment that's already been touched by man. I really want to emphasize that part. We're not talking about pristine rivers here in Glacier Park. Let's just preserve those as is, but my point is really to focus on these man-made, old vacant mills, dams. Let's get rid of that stuff and make something that benefits the entire community. Whether you use the river or not, it's going to stimulate the economy, bring new jobs to town, help the enrollment at our university. And, it just puts your town on the map and makes it beautiful at the same time.
So Brennan's was born of an opportunity to clean up a man-made issue in the river. Max is an attempt to do some of that, but also do more.
So the Max Wave is a memorial. It's a tribute to a young kayaker named Max Lentz that drowned while he was attending World Class Kayak Academy.
He was a friend of my daughter's. I would say he was a friend of mine too, because he was just such an outgoing, young, wonderful, vibrant kid.
Brandon's Wave was also a memorial, so kind of following along those same lines. Max's passion was the river, and what better way for his family to memorialize him than have a wave named after him, and it's a positive thing, and Max was a positive person, so it's like, it's sad that, these people would be against such a thing. It makes zero sense.
Max Wave isn't without controversy. There are folks who don't think that there should be another man-made structure in the Clark Fork River. And there are folks who, I think like me, recognize that the Clark Fork flows through Missoula in ways that are completely unnatural. The course of the river, the channel, has been dramatically changed by humans over time. So can we do both? Can we have a structure that allows folks to play, that takes care of wildlife? I think we can have man-made structures in the river that actually enhance our respect for the resource. And so we're in the process now of really applying science to the dream to understand whether whatever we do there benefits wildlife as well as humans, and that's yet to be determined.
Yeah, you'll see people fishing in town or just below town or just above town, and in addition, like the discussion with Milltown Dam, it's an important migration corridor, and fish travel hundreds of miles, and so it can have it has an effect beyond its just immediate borders. I'm trying to find a good balance of providing a recreational wave, but not compromising those biological functions, or at least mitigating for them to the extent possible. Trying to protect or even enhance aquatic resources or riparian habitats in an urban environment is of course challenging. And one of the unique problems in Missoula is the amount of transient or homeless camps along the river. A lot of them want to be left alone and kind of a place to feel secluded, and that's often in vegetation. And so there's a desire to manage the vegetation to be more open, so you don't have that opportunity for homeless or transients to set up camps. And so we've been to some meetings with Sheriff's Office, city officials, Paul Varello Center, and how we can try to keep some of the vegetation that's important for aquatic habitat, and yet have them feel safe enough where they can enter these areas and either provide help or I guess do enforcement.
This kind of whole zone that we're looking at here is really inhabited, it's overrun by transients, drug dens. I find needles down here every single day. Just trash, garbage. We get the people from being able to hide out in the bushes, do their drugs. I find used condoms down here, trash. Oftentimes you're gonna see shopping carts. I'll come down here and pull a lot of shopping carts out of here. What I see right here, this should be a swimming hole, fishing, handicap access. Let's reconstruct this irrigation structure as well, turn this into a surf wave. We're not even dealing with the main flow of the river here, so the permitting, things like that, not going to be as big an issue. We're just dealing with the ditch owner right here. So you replace this broken irrigation weir with something like the Max Wave, and it's just a win every way you look at it. It's a win for the local economy. It's going to bring events, it's going to bring people to town. I mean, you see it at Brennan's Waves. Once it was only transients down there, that was it, broken glass and transients. Now it's, you know, wedding photos, senior pictures, surfers, kayakers, you know, fishermen. It creates a positive environment.
I've seen rivers that are now cement conduits. I mean, worst case scenario I know is like at the LA River, and we're not Los Angeles, but from my standpoint, the Montana legislature passed a law where the policy is to try to maintain the natural existing condition to the extent possible. And that law was designed to maintain fishing and the fish resources, because the legislature recognized the value of aquatic resources and fishing to Montana. And so part of that responsibility is towards the angling community. As far as I know, in talking to different folks in the angling community, there's anything from serious concern to let's try to find how these things can come together.
Anything you do in the West, and Missoula is no exception, there's always people that want to leave it like it is, and there's people that would like to see change. And I kind of sit in the middle. I believe that we can all work together and make change that brings the river back to a better place for Missoula. I don't think the change is necessarily making the river natural. I don't think that's possible in Missoula. But the barriers really are, you know, people that want to ensure that we don't have a really negative impact. You know, and that includes fisheries. And one of our challenges is to make sure that when the wave is built, that bull trout can get more easily through that section of the river than they can past the current cofferdam of the irrigation ditch that we're building the Max Wave on. And the engineering reports and all the 3D modeling that have been done, they all show that this will be an improvement for fish passage. But it is just a model, and you know, so we can be criticized that we don't know if the model will actually hold up. But it's the best model that we have in the country, and it's been used in a lot of other wave structures and other modelings of rivers, and seems to be quite good.
I think first thing we have to realize is that engineering specs don't always mean biological effects. We haven't studied the effects of Brennan's Wave specifically. I would say most of what we know is taken from what studies have been done in Colorado and on whitewater parks there, and some of the physical measurements that have been taken at Brennan's Wave. And one of the examples that Colorado showed was that despite all the design and engineering that went into trying to produce or maintain trout habitat, it actually was a negative. Then they also found that larger trout could move through some of the wave structures, but smaller trout or smaller fish species couldn't. And so it's really hard for all the engineering to line up what actually ends up happening biologically, partly because you have an engineering design, then there's the build, what actually got built, and then you're in a wild river with sediment moving through and trees moving through, and we want to make sure we don't do the mistakes Colorado did.
We're being held to a super high standard for permitting because it's the first recreational permit on a river in Montana. We have the Brennan's Wave, which exists, but that went through without permits at all. That was built as part of renovations to the irrigation dam. And because of that, everybody has come out and said, no, you have to have all the permits. You know, our final barriers are Fish, Wildlife, and Parks approving their permit, and then the City Council approving the wave in the city, and they will take future ownership. So those are really our last two barriers. not to mention raising $2 million to actually build the project.
Another thing about the Max Wave is it's all privately raised money. It's not like tax paying for it, things like that.
The trails next to the riverbank will be improved, access to the river will be improved. We will have handicapped access at 2 points above and below the waves for anybody that wants to get down to the river. We also have a boat ramp right below there. We're building a couple of eddies along with the wave to help people get in and out. So hopefully that will improve not only the Brennan's Wave area, spread out the boaters, but also provide access for anybody that would like to get to the river and reduce soil erosion on the banks. One of the dangers of irrigation ditches is fish entrapment, meaning fish swim down the irrigation ditch and they can't get back up because of gates and flows. And so as part of this project, we have budgeted for $200,000 for a fish screen. It's a big wheel that has to be cleaned, the debris comes off of it, but it also keeps the fish from going down the dam. So that will be a benefit to the fisheries population. The area will be cleaned up for kayakers, surfers on the wave, but the boat passage will be also much improved. The Max Wave will be a series of 2 waves in parallel going down the river. That provides better opportunity for everybody. We've held the U.S. Nationals here a few times in the whitewater rodeo stuff. We did an economic analysis of Brennan's Wave, and that showed just the direct impact of out-of-town users, their hotel nights, in-town users, their recreational activities afterwards, going to the bar, having dinner. And that came out at about $2.8 million of benefit to the town in 1 year. And I don't even think that's the major benefit. I think the major benefit is what people think of Missoula. Having people on the river surfing in a wave, boating, fishermen having a great time going through the wave, those are intangible. We can't put a value on it. But people obviously want to live near the river. Downtown Missoula is a vibrant place.
I mean, that's what it comes down to. I live here. I have a business here. I clearly see an opportunity, and I clearly see that we can do better as a community.
If you allow modification of a river channel to an applicant that wants to do that kind of work, pretty soon, where do you stop? Pretty soon people are allowed to modify a channel to whatever desire the applicant wants, and pretty soon you don't have the river you once had. And so, I mean, that's a challenging prospect. And you can look back the other way and say, yeah, it's been modified a lot already, let's do it some more. But I think the struggle is, which way do we want this to go? Do we want this to be a natural river, or are we going to go down the route of allowing modification for applicants of river form and function? And the way, as we look through history, that this river has recovered and that people are now drawn to the river, I think that trend is more towards keeping or improving the naturalness than going the other way.
I don't think humans can improve on anything that was natural to begin with. But once we've degraded it like we have the Clark Fork, yeah, we can do a lot. And so it's our responsibility to fix it up. And that's one of the hopes of the Max Wave, is that we will clean up our stretch of the river really well and make it a safe passage for fish coming upstream and for boaters going downstream.
Common sense. There's somewhere over here and there's somewhere over here. Some of the things they're saying are right. Some of the things they're saying, there's a middle ground somewhere. The Max Wave, they have a plan. They have a solution. The other side, they don't. Their solution is to leave it as is, and that's not good enough. I'd be lying straight up, man, if I said I didn't want an awesome wave to surf. That's the truth right there, 100%. But it all starts with respect, So like, if you're surfing every day, you respect that environment and you want to take care of it. It's not the alleyway, it's not the dump. Through my passion for kayaking and now surfing, it's really turned me into a river steward and somebody that wants to take care of the river.
The more people that love it, the more people that will want to take care of it and will support taking care of the river. We're not trying to change the Clark Fork with the Max Wave. We're trying to help take care of it and work with all the other user groups in town. We think that early this coming spring of 2019, we'll have all of our permits in place. We think that at that point the City Council will meet and consider, and we're quite confident they'll pass, but one never knows. We think within 3 years there will be new waves in Missoula. The Max Wave will exist, and it will be a great enhancement for Missoula. I'm quite confident that as people learn more about this project, even though it's taken us 10 years to get people to know a little bit, they'll be on board.